Hello and happy long weekend to those who celebrate. Jules here again with another video on yet another book that changed my life. I feel like I should be more grateful for that, but it's been a lot happening lately, so I take those transformational books. Is that the word? Transformational books one at a time. So today I'm going to talk to you about one more that felt very close to home. It was recommended to me by a friend, but that comes in a moment. Before I do tell you about this book and why I don't have my physical copy on me, I want to show you a little book haul. So something that's been waiting for me. That will be my upcoming read as we moved from October to November and approaching Christmas. Finally, I have some new exciting books that I want to share with you guys. So I hope you'll enjoy it. This is Chapterly Yours. All right, so I like having my physical copy of the book that I'm reading and wanting to show it to you guys as I go read from some passages. But actually, with I do have my notes, so we're still good here. With The Unbearable Lightness of Being, I decided to lend this copy to a friend that just left on a plane to Canada. So this is the first time that actually I'm doing this this way because I started annotating books, doing underlining the quotes not such a long time ago. And in Unbearable Lightness of Being, if you remember, I had tons of quotes underlined. So I'm very interested to see if that friend of mine will resonate with the quotes that I chose. So we'll see. But before we go into that, I do want to share all the books that are waiting on this sweet little table next to still a nameless plant. I am so sorry. I will find you a name, I promise. You do look like an Emily to me, but I'm not. I'm still partial to Emily. So we'll see. But there are a couple of books that I got myself. A couple of them are new, a couple of them are used, and I just bought it from someone and I'm very excited to see. And to be honest, Lot, I never said that I will set this, but this book was recommended to me by Killian Murphy. Not not that I spoke with him. I saw an interview in which he recommended it. And that's James Joyce's Dubliners. It's a very thin read. So I am aiming to do it this year for sure. I'm currently reading Frankenstein, which I will show you in a minute because it's a beautiful edition. But this feels like a rainy evening in November, curled up in my bed with tea and my electric blanket and just reading through it. Very interested in this one. I This will be my first James Joyce book. I think it's a good one to start with. So, yeah, very excited. This is Penguin English Library Collection with a very beautiful colored. I'm so not good at showing things. I don't know how people do that, but I hope you like it as much as I do. So this one is my upcoming read number one. Number two, this is not maybe necessarily a read as if I'm going to read it back to back, cover to cover, but this is a kind of book that I really like. It's an album. It's best movies of the 80s, and obviously when I got it, I unpacked it and I opened it. The first movie I saw was Top Gun. So, I mean, I think I will have to admit it at some point, but that's not the time yet. So I love those Taschen books, those Taschen editions. I have a couple. I have one about Van Gogh. I have the Stanley Kubrick archives. So it's more of a collector's kind of thing. And I've been eyeing this best movies of the 80s for a while now. So I decided to give myself a present with this one. Quite interested to see what's inside and what movies I still have to watch and which are ahead of me and what did they say about the ones that I've already watched. So very excited for this one as well. The next one is something I heard of but never actually got myself to get it. And that's Letters from Father Christmas by J.R.R. Tolkien. As you can see, this is quite beat up, but I don't care. It's a beautiful, beautiful edition, dog-eared, and when you go inside, you can see all those letters that he actually wrote to his children as Father Christmas. It's just beautiful. So it's not only the letters, but it's also an album, how they looked like. It will be a perfect read for me during Christmas season. So in a couple of months, I will definitely do a reread of my favorite Christmas Carol. That's a tradition I started last year, and I want to keep it up. But this might be a new addition. This might be my new tradition. So I am very excited. And the thing with used books is that I'm giving them a second life and hopefully a home, a forever home. I know that sounds very cheesy, but that's how it feels. Now, this is funny because this week I had a lot of conversations about books, about how the writers of the past anticipated, warned us what will happen. And we concluded among my friends that we're either living in Orwell reality or in a Huxley reality. So I dug up A Brave New World. I have this edition, but it's a different one because it has a 3D cover. Now, obviously, you cannot see it this way, but there are glasses included in this edition, and I completely forgot about this. It jogged my memory when we were talking about that it's either Orwell or Huxley, and now I don't really know how much or how should I show it to you so you can see the cover. But you honestly gotta trust me when I say this. It's 3D. And this is such a throwback when I was going to the movies and seeing for the first time those 3D movies. We were getting those paper glasses. They had the ear thingies as well, but this is just such a throwback, and it looks insane. If there will be a way for me to show it to you, like make a video, I will. I promise. I am not tech savvy enough to figure it out right now. It's ridiculous. I probably look ridiculous, but it's just such a cool cover. So Huxley, this book, we were talking about, oh my God, rambling as always, but we were talking a lot about whether rereading stories isn't or should be considered as a waste of time. In my opinion, no, never. And my approach is that if I ever feel like I'm in a reading slump or feeling that maybe I'm really not sure what should I read, I go for a reread. That's why I am currently rereading Frankenstein, and I have this beautiful, absolutely gorgeous painted edition with green pages, and there are some really nice artworks inside as well, also painted. So there's this entire collection of painted editions of books, and I love it. But having and also there are some spotlights on certain quotes, which is very very nice. And the reason I do all those rereads is because some stories resonate with you more than others, which is fine, and some keeps us humble. For example, that's Orwell, that's Anthony Burgess with A Clockwork Orange, and that's also Huxley with A Brave New World. That's Wells for me as well. So I do love a good reread, but I also try to pace myself with these because there's so much new books that I want to read. And that's all for now. I also have this beautiful set of Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice. I showed you a little sneak peek of it. I don't want to go into it just now because I know it will take me a ton of time. Plus, I do believe that this deserves its own video. So I will go to my trusty notes because I do want to talk more about the unbearable lightness of being. a book that was recommended to me by a friend. And I've also started a whole new tradition of writing in my book, if it's a recommendation from someone, that I'm just going to write a small note that this was recommended to me by so and so. So this book was the first one that I did it for. I then went back and reminded myself of all recommendations I've ever gotten for the past couple of years from people, and I did those annotations as well. So if I will borrow this book to someone, that will have like a chain reaction kind of thing, and it's so cool. I think it's amazing. I also, you know what, I'm gonna, because there's my tea in my penguin cup, I'm just gonna put it on the table because I suddenly became aware that it was on the floor, and things are never safe with me when they're on the floor. Anyway, Milan Kundera, that book was on my list somewhere deep down. I remember always saying that I do like this phrase, the unbearable lightness of being, without particularly knowing what it means and what was the context and what it meant to me. I feel that this book was transformative, not because of the concept of, or the political background, or the love that was portrayed there. It was transformative because it helped me understand something that I already knew, but it was kind of an information just in the back of my brain, without context, without definition, without being, final, like this kind of settling in your head. What was surprising to me is that I thought that Milan Kundera passed away like in the 90s or 80s, but he did pass away in 2023, so just 2 years ago. He was born in 1920, a Czech and French novelist and writer living on the exile, and that exile was also a theme in a couple of his books. The most popular novels were The Joke, a satire on totalitarian ways of the world, and Communism, Life Elsewhere, which was a satirical portrait of a fictional poet, but also The Book of Laughter and Forgetting, which was a mixture of novel and short stories written in exile. I have not read these yet. I feel like I needed a good break, a good in between read before I move into those concepts of his. I feel like there are certain authors like Milan Kundera or Gabriel Garcia Marquez that just require a break in between. You cannot just devour all of the books. Like, for example, you could do with Joan Didion, which is probably not the best example because she was a journalist writing about things that, like, reporting. But you know what? It's fine, Jules. You got this. It's Friday. Totally fine. We're rolling here. It's all good. But today, yes, I do want to talk to you about the book. The one book that if you hear the name Milan Kundera, you will immediately go to The Unbearable Lightness of Being. I, as a avid movie watcher, movie goer, am obligated to tell you that there was an adaptation which was horrible. I didn't like it at all. My personal opinion, and everybody has a right to have one, even if it's wrong. But yeah, I think, if I'm not mistaken, even Milan Kundera himself was very not pleased with what they did with the movie. So, I mean, it's just, I think that there are some books that is very tricky to do a proper adaptation of. Sometimes it feels like it's deemed to fail. For example, Dune was that kind of movie, or a book really, for me. To give you an example, what David Lynch did was a great science fiction movie, but a poor adaptation. Let's end it there. What Denis Villeneuve did was a fantastic science fiction and a great book adaptation. I think that the changes that Villeneuve has made to his Dune were necessary. But that's, again, my opinion. But the point is, there are some books that you read, that you talk about, that you hear of, that just seem unadaptable on a big screen. And for me, The Unbearable Lightness of Being is one of those books. Will there ever be another adaptation? I believe yes. But will it give the same depth and awaken the same feelings that I've been feeling while I was reading this book? I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But this book is definitely most famous. It was published in 1984. Orwell again. That's just, well, the life was different in 1984, and it was different when the book was like where the book was set as well. But the political context and the history, that will come last, because as much as I believe that the backdrop for this novel was very important, it wasn't of the biggest interest to me, but I still acknowledge it. It was still there, still will be worth mentioning. But my God, the paradoxes between lightness and weight, the way he made you feel everything all at once, like you were light, but you were also weighing hundreds and thousands of tons, pounds, kilograms. I don't know. It's such a peculiar bipolar concept of, because it was really polarizing. The characters that we had, there was no in between. There was, you're either full committed to the lightness of life, or you're choosing to be downed with its weight. I have a quote here that was page 7. I remember that vividly. That was page 7. So let me read it to you. He remained annoyed with himself until he realized that not knowing what he wanted was actually quite natural. We can never know what to want because, living only one life, we can never compare it with our previous lives, nor perfect it in our lives to come. And that was the moment, page 7, I realized that I'm just not going to be a different person once I finish this book. That's when I realized that while reading a book, that's a moment when I'm deciding to pace myself. I am very tempted to just go ahead, dive in, head straight into the entire book, preferably in one night, but I'm choosing to pace myself. I like enjoying and just kind of torturing myself through the book in time. That is such a powerful quote. And that was one of the first things I learned in therapy, that it's okay to not know what you want. It's okay to not know how to do things, because this is our first time on this planet, first time living this jolly old life. And that was especially important in context of parenthood, right? This isn't like when you have two, three, four, 5 kids, it's different. But with the first one, and even with the second one, it's still doing things for the first time for everyone. So that made me realize and gain a new respect for my parents as well, which was an added bonus of therapy. But this quote itself, I feel like sometimes we are pushed or obligated to know exactly what we want, know exactly what to do and how to do it and how to get there. The best example, I think, is when we're graduating high school, age 18, 19. You are facing a choice whether to go to college, to university, or to straight to any type of work. And you're 18 and you have to decide. And if you go for the college route or university route, you have to pick a direction, right? A major. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was 18 or 19. I had those dreams of becoming archaeologist or a librarian, but practically speaking, I had bills to pay. So it's always this choice between being practical and following your dream, but it's still such a tough choice at this age. And then the choices as life progresses become tougher and harder. At work, should I go change this role right now? Should I stay? Is it going to get better? And it's okay to not know. It is completely fine because you're doing this for the first time. You might have some repetitiveness in life, but it's not exactly 100% always the same. So it's fine. That quote just literally made me realize just how great this book will be. And I remember texting my friend who recommended this book to me, and I was like, I am fucked. I am utterly, completely fucked. And mind you, I read this book right after A Room of One's Own, which also flipped everything. I imagine that my brain is like a set of tables, and every time I am reading something or watching something that is just so transformative, the one of the table or couple of tables just get flipped out, like, upside down. Everything is on the floor. It's chaos, a dumpster fire. But it's so nice because then everything changes. And you know, I'm gonna say something very corporate right now, but constant is the only change. Change is the only constant. Wow, that that is still hope for me because I have been saying that a lot, and now I messed it up. So there is still a fighting chance of me, getting out of that corporate. Anyway, that's not important. The important thing that I will focus on is the weight versus lightness. Kundera poses a question, and I wrote it down so I don't forget. Is it better to live lightly without attachment or consequences? Or is it better to embrace the weight, the meaning, responsibility, love? Well, he didn't exactly ask it this way, he just wrote it, and that's the question that I asked myself. Now, I remember because it all ties back to Nietzsche's concept of eternal return. In that concept, and I have to go down to my notes again because it's such a complex thing. If life repeats infinitely, our actions carry weight. But if it happens only once, everything is life and therefore perhaps meaningless. When I read this concept that Kundera brought, like, quoted Nietzsche's concept, I put the book down for like a good hour and I was staring at the ceiling thinking whether I am more of a believer of those eternal returns, or is it just one life and then you checks out and you're good to go? I remember that back then when I was starting the book, when I read about the concept, I didn't know. I didn't know. And I realized that the answer will come to me while I finish this book because I will have time to digest, to get this information, to understand what it means to me and how it applies to my life. And I knew that having those polarized characters, we start the book off with Thomas, that is the embodiment of lightness, no attachments, just fun, especially nothing that is emotionally heavy. And we have Teresa, who is a complete polarized opposite. She is yearning for attachment, for seriousness, for depth, for love, right? And that was a moment for me that I imagined a scale in my head, this life scale. If I could draw it right here, I would. Maybe I will. I don't know how to edit stuff. And if one side was weight and the other side was lightness, I was drawn more into the weight section, but not all the way. I would be in the middle, and I will have a beautiful conclusion for the end. Right now, just imagine that scale. One side is weight, the other side is the lightness of being, right? Keep that in mind. This will be very helpful by the end. Polar opposites, Thomas and Teresa, yet they stayed together regardless of anything that was happening in their life. Two more quotes that I think if I had the book on me, I would also read to you from the book is, what can life be worth if the first rehearsal for life is life itself? And that ties back beautifully to the concept of eternal returns, or being just, one time deal and you're done. How can you prepare for something like that if that's the rehearsal? And that poses a question whether you should say yes more often or no more often. This Monday, for the first time in my 32 years on this planet, I've tried an oyster. And you guess what? It was disgusting. it was it was stuck in my throat for a moment. I was praying to universe so just I could like go through with it, but I tried it and I'm happy I did because I will never do it again, but I'm able to say that I did it, you know? And if this is my only instance on this planet, then by the end, I want to know that it meant something to me, that I was brave enough, that I was curious enough. It's a wonderful realization, you know, when you think about it very long and it's like those philosophical moment in your life, knowing which way your heart goes, which in what you believe, changes everything. And I'm wondering now that I said it, what is it like for you? Are you more of a eternal return kind of person, or this is my one life here, my one chance of making an impact for myself and for those around me? That's a great question. The other quote pertains more to love. Love is the longing for the half of ourself we have lost. Now, I think that ties back to the concept that a human was once like two bodies together with two heads, and then it was split somehow by someone. It's like a mythology thing, I think. And then that's the concept of the soulmates. Like you find that person, and it's just like same body, same soul, all that stuff. Romantic. But the entire concept of love and infidelity was a big portion of this book, and it was so insanely interesting to me because I remember having a conversation like 10 years ago with someone, a man, and that's very important because that was back then. I thought that this is such a man thing to do, to tell me, and that's so sad. Like I don't, that's not the only type of man I have in my life, which is great. But the guy was trying to tell me that he could be emotionally attached to just one woman and love her forever, but he will sleep around. That's very simplified of me to tell you. But and Milan Kundera, that's why he's the published author, has given us this very complex description of what I just said. That Thomas believed that love and sex are separate, and Teresa couldn't. I'm fully on board with her way of thinking. Again, that's me personally, what I think. But 10 years ago, that concept was unthinkable to me. Right now, I am more open minded in a way that you do you, honey. Just whatever makes you happy. And if you're not hurting anybody else, do it. But the moment this hurts someone or this would hurt me, I will exclude myself from this narrative. You do you, just over there, away from me. So Kundera is on purpose blurring the line between love as freedom and love as imprisonment. I told you that Thomas and Teresa are polar opposites. There is nothing in between them. It's either his way or her way. And yet they still stay together because they're unable to live without each other. For Thomas, it's kind of this deeply rooted obligation to take care of her. Now that I said it, I was wondering whether he really loves her. I think he does. For Teresa, it's she is, I think, able to forgive anything because she loves him so much. So she's complicit with the infidelities, still hoping that he would change for her. And Kundera gives so much layers to this because we have the representative of weight, we have Teresa, we have Thomas, who is the lightness of being, of life, but we also have Sabina, who is Thomas's lover. That is such a tree of connections. So Sabina is the embodiment of betrayal and living on your own terms without anyone telling you what to do or how to do it. And then there is Sabina's lover called Franz, who is the embodiment of an idealist. He lives for grand causes, and he tries to do what is right. That being said, he did cheat on his wife with Sabina, which is not the right thing to do. But it was more about like political idealism, not necessarily being a moral person. Moral person. Yeah, moral. That is a very complicated set of characters that you have to deal with, but it's very digestible to read. And digestible, I think, is not a very attractive word when you're describing a book. But trust me, I've read books that are just horrible when you're introducing character after character and you just don't know who is who. And there is a clear distinction, like each one of them has a theme. We have lightness, weight, betrayal, and idealism. There are a couple of more characters that are there in the background, but I don't think that they are significant enough or were significant enough for me to talk about it. Tea break. I This is a penguin mug. I love penguins. Still am in my penguin era, and I do believe that penguins are my sign from the universe that my life is well on track. So, been seeing them a lot lately. I wonder what that could mean. And that tea is actually a gift from my Canadian friend. So this is very nice drinking tea all the way from Canada. Another quote that shifted something in me goes like this. And I just related to this so much. And my God, I am full of real realizations. Why am I speaking hard words to myself today? It's fine. It's okay. All right, here goes the quote. It's really good. Anyone whose goal is something higher must expect someday to suffer vertigo. What is vertigo? Fear of falling? No. Vertigo is something other than fear of falling. It is the voice of the emptiness below us, which tempts and lures us. It is the desire to fall against which, terrified, we defend ourselves. Now, for years now, I've been saying to myself, to my friends, that I have this deeply rooted belief that I am meant for something bigger, in life. Not just in the concept of becoming famous or a politician, God no, but doing something that has meaning, more meaning, real impact. The creative things that I'm doing, the writing, those videos, it is a higher purpose for me. So that's why this quote brought tears to my eyes, because I don't remember relating to a description that well in a very long time. There always is this feeling of vertigo that is not a fear itself. It's a temptation to fall for that fear, to just give in and kind of dwell in it. And that's what keeps you stuck. It is a constant battle between being tired and giving in, and realizing, noticing that this is there. It's never going to go away, because that is the destiny of those someone's hires, let's call it this way. It will always be there. The key, I think, is, for me at least, is to know it's there, be humble about knowing it's there, and then just pushing through. I will top of the morning to you, demon. I'll just keep on pushing. I'll keep on dreaming those. I'll keep on yearning for those things, because that's just who I am. That's me in a nutshell. That's your Jules. But when you go and compare it towards that, whether you are pro lightness of being or pro weightness of being, that question is so important. If I am dreaming of higher things and this is my one and only chance on this planet, you best believe I'm going to do everything to achieve that greatness, that is whatever it is for me. But if it's my another chance at life that I just don't remember the previous ones and I will return eternally, what if my actions have consequences? Well, they do, Jules, always. But what if I won't know that. So this is such a philosophical dilemma. And I will go back to my notes just because I wrote it so perfectly and I want to stop rumbling and just tell you how it should be. I think that's why this book feels so transformative to me. Imagine realizing that this is your first time on this planet and you either believe more eternal return is coming or you just have this one life. And I'm still talking about this dreaming of something higher. And even if you stand by the eternal beliefs, who says any part of you will remember? My actions will have consequences, but would I ever experience them in another life? Would I know? See, it's been a month since I finished this book and it's still keeping me up awake at night sometimes. And this week, I think it's perfect to record this video because I have spent so much time talking about it. And, you know, it felt very nice to connect with someone who is also this kind of yearning type of person, yearning for something greater, for something higher. And it's not like a materialistic yearn for more money, more fame, more clout, whatever. It's so hard to explain it with words. That's why I can't. That's why you should read The Unbearable Lightness of Being. This is the reason. If you're not convinced by my rambling, then just if you have that little seed in you, that if it's watered by the right things and right people, and if it makes you feel like you could do something higher, that's your cue. You should go ahead and read it. Preferably not in one sitting because I guarantee you will feel another type of vertigo. But it's so, so worth it. There's another quote that stuck with me, and the reason it stuck and I remembered it when I was making notes for this episode is because the past few weeks were very emotionally tough for me. And I realized that, maybe not realize that having emotions and feelings is weakness, but when you feel this way, because inevitably you will feel weakened by those emotions. This quote is the perfect explanation. But when the strong were too weak to hurt the weak had to be strong enough to leave. And that triggered another train of thoughts, which is not related to the book. But I spoke about this with my best friend and this week with another colleague. Can you mourn something or someone that's not gone yet? And then we talked about the concept of anticipatory grief, and that work colleague recommended to me a book called The Way Things Go, written by Louise Bury. I will get back to you on that, but I believe that you can mourn something that's not gone yet. I don't know why I think this way. Perhaps this is my defense mechanism helping me to prepare for something that might come sooner or later. But this quote was such a connector of those dots and that conversation I had about this book. I will get back to you once I read it because I had it downloaded now. And it is about the anticipatory grief. Like, I wonder what the concept there is. Like, is it our way of preparing for what's coming in this softer way to kind of be in tune with those emotions to allow yourself to feel this way? Or is it something else entirely? Because I do have a concept that what it means to me. So I will give it to you in full once I read the book, and then we will compare with what the author had in mind. But this quote was very universal in that regard for me. Now, anticipatory grief is not part of the unbearable lightness of being in a way because, well, no, not in the way that I just described it. So, moving on, I just thought it's a nice nugget for you to have. Another quote, and that will be a segue to that's another corporate lingo. I'm sorry. That will be a nice smooth transition. There you go. Transition to the political background that I think it's very important to mention. Prague Spring. The struggle of a man against power is the struggle of memory against forgetting. That book, I swear, I only gave you a couple of those quotes, but I have marked like good 70 quotes. And when you Google the quotes from this book, it's a gold mine. I promise. You will always find something that will resonate with you. But since I'm doing the video, there has to be quotes that resonate with me. The background of this book is clearly the Prague Spring, the invasion on Czechoslovakia, and it is also a reflection of how personal choices mirror the political choices. And the concept of lightness and weight also extends to this political background. So it's a very clean and smooth interception between, love, infidelity, life, politics. Everything through and through is submerged in this concept of weightness and lightness. So in this political context, it's conforming versus rebelling, and staying versus leaving. Because at some point, Thomas and Teresa are leaving to Zurich, but then they are drawn back. Not too big of a spoiler. I'm purposely trying to avoid those. I'm so proud of myself. But there is the concept of Prague Spring. I did some actual research and reading on this later on because I was curious. I was never good at history. I am better now because it's on my own terms, which is great. I think what was very interesting about this political background was reading through chapters dedicated to Sabina and her thoughts on this. That was just remarkable. Remarkable perspective on what was happening in the country. Last but not least, the concepts of memory, meaning, and morality. And I have a quote for this as well, which also relates to love. Metaphors are dangerous. Love begins with a metaphor. I'll tell you what, it sure as hell does. And this book is the living, breathing paper proof of that. The book constantly poses the question, which again I have to read to you. Is life no, if life is fleeting and light, how do we create meaning? Right? If we go into that, yeah, YOLO concept, this is our only time, I don't have to have any regard for the consequences that may be reflecting in another lifetime or maybe an effect of previous lifetimes, I still want to give meaning to the things that I do, even if I don't take them as seriously, even if I'm like, you know, I don't care. There is still this drive to give meaning. And I was afraid to answer myself with my own voice. So I decided to journal this question. And so all those secrets that were in my head are now a whisper on a paper. And the answer was surprising to me. I will leave you with this question. How do you create meaning? How do you give meaning if your life is a fleeting thing? That's so powerful and that's so intimate and makes you really question everything. The conclusion for me when I ended this book, so this is a moment when you have to still remember that line. I don't remember whether weight or lightness was whatever, but let's reimagine that line again. Weight, lightness. I was somewhere closer to the weight, but then I realized that there is this pull towards lightness, but it is restrained. It's not like I'm swinging from one way to another. I am being gently pulled back by a force. And that force for me is tenderness. Just a little bit of tenderness. And then the lightness of life becomes bearable because it is infused with tenderness. I'm not sure if I could totally submit to the lightness of being. My core beliefs are different. probably more rooted in the weight of life. But if therapy taught me something, is that you can always rewire your brain. So for me, it's tenderness in everything that I do, the softness of things that I do, of things that I say, of things that I hopefully embody for other people. Lastly, the thought that I jotted down and I want to share it with you is maybe the unbearable lightness of being becomes bearable also when we stop trying to weight it. Maybe that's another takeaway. I still am more leaning towards tenderness being the key ingredient, but I think that book, even though it has a definitive ending, it has an open minded, it's like a little door that's always going to be ajar in your mind because of that book. So I highly recommend you read it. I highly recommend you do yourself this favor of this transformative journey, being exposed to all those concepts and challenge yourself. Because it will be a challenge. I promise you, you will never be the same once you read this book. So read it when you're ready. When Kate was recommending this book to me, she told me she read it about the time that she was my age, and that was something that I appreciated a lot because I think it's a perfect moment. It was a perfect moment for me, like being 32 and in like a crossroad, emotional crossroad. Um, it sometimes feel like you're pouring or sprinkling salt on an open wound. It didn't feel quite as horrible, but it I was a little conflicted and angry reading this. But then I took my time to take a moment, take a breath, stare at the ceiling, and realize what this really means. Was this fear of change? No, it probably was the vertigo, just being a little louder than it usually is. But I hope that it the way I presented this book will mean something to you, and you will be able to come back and say thank you for recommending this to me, because it is one of the greatest books for a reason. So I hope you will enjoy this, and thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate this a lot. I appreciate every kind word and every type of reaction to what I do. Next one will probably a little lighter, I hope. I feel like I also need this break from the unbearable weight of transformation. So next time it's going to be fun and engaging, perhaps Frankenstein or Pride and Prejudice, who knows. But thank you so much. I love you guys. Enjoy your day, weekend, month, November, and the upcoming Christmas season. I will definitely speak to you before Christmas, but just, being in a festive mood already. All right, rambling and stops now. I thank you. Bye.